You have probably seen one before and walked right past it without thinking much about it. A small tube of dried mud attached to the side of your garage, a rough brown lump tucked under the porch roof, a strange little cluster stuck beside a window frame. At first it looks like nothing more than dirt. Then your mind starts filling in the blanks. Was it built by wasps? Is something alive inside? Will it open one day and release a swarm? Should you scrape it off before it becomes a problem? Most people never wait long enough to find out. They see a mud nest on a wall, reach for a broom, and knock it down before asking the one question that matters most. What is actually living inside? That question is where the entire story begins, because the mud nest on your wall is not just a lump of dirt. It is not a random stain left behind by rain. It is not the beginning of a dangerous colony. And it is not the kind of nest most people imagine when they hear the word wasp. Inside that dry shell of mud is a hidden chamber, sometimes several chambers, each one built with a purpose, each one sealed like a tiny room, each one holding a secret that most homeowners never see. Have you ever wondered why these nests appear in the same sheltered corners every summer? Why would an insect spend hours carrying tiny pieces of wet mud to your wall? Why would it build a chamber, fill it, seal it, and then simply fly away? And if the nest looks so still from the outside, why is it one of the most active stories happening around your home? Today, we are going to find out what is really living inside those mud nests. We are going to look at the insect that builds them, the prey it hunts, the reason the nest is sealed, and why destroying it may mean removing one of the quietest and most useful hunters your yard has. But before we open that mud chamber, we need to clear up the misunderstanding that causes most of the fear. The builder is usually a mud dauber wasp, and the first thing you need to know is this. A mud dauber is not like the aggressive wasps many people worry about. It is not part of a large, angry colony. It does not have hundreds of workers hidden inside the nest. It is not building a paper ball filled with insects ready to defend a queen. A mud dauber is solitary. That means one female builds the nest alone. She gathers the mud alone. She hunts alone. She prepares the chamber alone. And once her work is finished, she leaves the next generation sealed safely inside. There is no swarm waiting behind the wall. There is no group attack. There is no army inside the mud. The entire structure is usually the work of one patient insect, doing a job that has been repeated across North America for longer than any house has stood in your neighborhood. Now, let us talk about the mud itself, because that is where the story becomes more impressive than it first appears. After rain, or near a damp garden bed, the female mud dauber searches for wet soil. She lands carefully near a puddle, a muddy edge, or a soft patch of earth. Then she gathers a tiny ball of mud in her mouthparts. Not a handful, not a large clump, just one small pellet. Then she flies back to the wall, porch, shed, garage, or window frame where she has chosen to build. She presses that pellet into place. Then she leaves again, and returns again. One trip, then another, over and over. What looks like a simple, ugly lump of dirt may actually represent dozens or even hundreds of separate flights. Each piece is placed with care. Each layer dries and strengthens the chamber. Slowly, the wall of the nest begins to rise. From the outside, it may look rough and unfinished, but inside, the space is being shaped for a very specific purpose. It is not just a shelter. It is a nursery, a pantry, a sealed survival room for a young wasp that has not even hatched yet. And once that chamber is ready, the female mud dauber changes her mission. She stops collecting mud, and she begins to hunt. This is the part almost no one sees. The wasp that looked so quiet on your wall becomes one of the most precise predators in your yard. She does not fly randomly. She searches. She patrols along fences, garden beds, porch corners, wood piles, sheds, garages, and the undersides of leaves. She is looking for spiders, not because she eats them herself in the way you might expect, but because her young will need them later. When she finds a spider, the encounter is quick. The mud dauber approaches with extraordinary control. Then she stings. The venom does not simply kill the spider. It paralyzes it. The spider remains alive, but it can no longer move. It cannot run. It cannot bite. It cannot escape. Then the mud dauber lifts the spider and carries it back to the mud chamber. Imagine that happening again and again around your home, without you ever noticing. One spider from a garden corner, another from beneath a porch beam, another from a shed, another from the side of a fence. Each spider is carried back to the nest and placed inside. From the outside, the nest still looks silent. Nothing seems to be happening. But inside, the chamber is filling. One spider, then several, sometimes many. A hidden storehouse is being prepared inside that small brown tube on your wall. And this is where the story becomes even stranger. The spiders are not the creature living inside the nest. They are only the food. Once the chamber has enough paralyzed spiders, the female mud dauber lays a single egg inside. Just one. Small, quiet, almost invisible. Then she seals the chamber with more mud. After that, she leaves. To a person passing by, the nest now looks abandoned. No movement, no sound, no opening, just a dry lump of mud on a wall. But behind that sealed surface, a life cycle has already begun. A few days later, the egg hatches. A tiny larva emerges into a chamber filled with fresh food. That is why the spiders were paralyzed instead of killed. If they were dead, they would decay. But because they are paralyzed, they remain fresh long enough for the larva to feed. It sounds strange to us, maybe even unsettling. But in the insect world, this is one of the most efficient survival systems ever developed. The young larva begins to eat, slowly at first, then more, one spider after another. Every meal helps it grow. It does not have to hunt. It does not have to search. It does not have to face the open world. Everything it needs was prepared before it was born. Food, shelter, protection, a sealed chamber away from rain, birds, ants, and changing weather. All of that hidden inside a structure smaller than your hand. Now think about what most people do when they see it. They knock it down. They destroy the nursery without ever knowing what was happening inside. They remove the work of a hunter that may have spent days building and provisioning that one chamber. And often they do it because they believe they are preventing danger. But the danger they imagine is usually not there. Mud daubers are widely known for being among the least aggressive wasps people commonly encounter. They are not interested in chasing you. They are not waiting to attack your family. They are not defending a crowded colony. Most of the time, they are focused on only two things: building and hunting. Can a mud dauber sting? Yes, a female has a stinger. But stings to people are uncommon and usually happen only if the insect is handled, trapped, pressed, or stepped on. A mud dauber flying near a wall or nest is not behaving like a yellow jacket defending a colony. It is usually working alone and trying to finish its task. That difference matters because when people hear wasp, they often imagine the worst version of the word. They imagine a nest full of angry insects. They imagine painful stings. They imagine danger hanging from the eaves. But a mud dauber nest is a very different thing. It is not a social fortress. It is a series of private chambers, built by one female, provisioned for one purpose, and sealed for the next generation. Now, let us go deeper into what the mud dauber is actually doing for your yard. Spiders are part of the ecosystem too, and they have their own value. But in and around homes, sheds, porches, garages, and corners, spiders can become numerous. Mud daubers help keep some of those spider populations in check. They do it without sprays, without traps, without chemicals, without disrupting everything around them. A single female may collect many spiders during a nesting season. If several mud daubers are active around a property, the number of spiders removed can be surprisingly high. And because they hunt specific prey, they do not affect the yard in the broad destructive way chemical pesticides often can. That is one of the quiet truths about nature around the home. Some of the best pest control does not look like pest control at all. It looks like a small wasp carrying mud. It looks like a brown tube on a garage wall. It looks like an insect you almost never notice flying in and out of sheltered corners. The work is happening in silence. No announcement. No warning. No dramatic sign. Just a tiny hunter moving through the edges of your daily life. And there is another reason these nests are worth noticing. They can tell you something about the conditions around your home. Mud daubers do not choose building sites at random. They prefer places that are protected from direct rain. They often build under roof edges, porch ceilings, shed overhangs, garage corners, and sheltered walls. They look for dry, stable surfaces, where the mud chamber will not be washed away before the young can develop. So when you find a mud dauber nest, you are also seeing evidence of a small protected microhabitat, a place where mud can dry, where young insects can survive, where a predator can complete its life cycle. It is a small sign that the living world has found a corner of your home and made use of it. That does not mean you must leave every nest in every location. If a nest is in a place where it causes problems, near a doorway, inside equipment, or in a spot that must be cleaned, you can remove old inactive nests after the wasps have emerged. But there is a difference between thoughtful removal and instant destruction. The next time you see one, pause first. Look for fresh activity. Look for small round exit holes. Notice whether the nest is new and sealed, or old and already empty. A sealed chamber may still contain developing life. An old chamber with holes may simply be the shell of a story already completed. That small detail changes everything. Because once you know what the holes mean, the nest no longer looks like a threat. It looks like evidence. Evidence that a young wasp emerged. Evidence that a mother built, hunted, stalked, sealed, and left behind everything her offspring needed. Evidence that an entire hidden drama unfolded on the side of a wall while people walked past it every day. Now return to the question from the beginning. What is actually living inside that mud nest? At first, the answer seems simple. A wasp larva, paralyzed spiders, a developing insect. But the real answer is larger than that. Inside that mud nest lives a story about work most humans never see. A story about a mother that never meets her young, but prepares everything they need. A story about prey hidden in corners, carried through the air, and sealed into darkness. A story about survival taking place in a space so small that most people mistake it for dirt. And once you understand that, the nest changes. It stops being just a stain on the wall. It stops being just something ugly to scrape away. It becomes a window into a secret world operating around your home every summer. So the next time you notice one of those strange mud tubes beneath your porch roof, beside your garage door, or attached to a quiet corner of your wall, you now know what may be happening. Not a hidden swarm, not an infestation, not a dangerous colony waiting to attack, but a carefully built nursery, a sealed chamber, a living pantry, a patient hunter preparing the next generation, one mud pellet at a time, one spider at a time, one chamber at a time, and all of it happening so quietly that you may have lived beside it for years without ever knowing. Have you ever found one of these mud nests on your home? Did you destroy it? Leave it alone? Or wonder what was inside? Tell me about it in the comments. I read every single one. And if today was the day an ordinary lump of dried mud became one of the most remarkable structures in your yard, then something just shifted in the way you look at the walls around your home. That shift is exactly what this community is built on. I will see you in the next one.